Let us begin with our prayer before study. Christ, my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom in learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work, for to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person, for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. All righty. Today we will dig into this book that I really talked up last week about how amazingly important it was. But first, let's look at our art, and then let's look at the papers I have to give back to you. And you have papers for me. Hold on, because I'm already holding the picture. I'll put the picture up here. This is a grave stele, S-T-E-L-E, basically a tombstone. And we happen to know who's portrayed because the name is still there. Her name is Hageso. We know her dad was named Proxenus. And she died about 400 BC. Socrates died in 399. This is a tombstone from roughly the time of Socrates. And it's kind of interesting. You may have noticed we haven't met a lot of ladies this year. Can you think of a woman we've encountered, a notable woman we've encountered in anything we've read?
The one girl, the commander, even her eyes. The one who took excessive revenge.
Okay. Artemisia, actually, no, yes. We had the lady who took excessive revenge. Excellent. Gosh, I remember 2 things out of Herodotus. I'm thrilled. All right. So this was unusual, the Artemisia, that she was a lady commander. And then the lady who took excessive revenge, she just really took charge. You give me an army and I'm going to go beat up on those guys who took out my son. And it was awful. Any other women, notable women?
The oracle person.
The prophetess, not the Sibyl, that's Roman. Don't remember. I didn't mean to leave that on. Yes, the prophetess at Delphi. We have Clytemnestra, who axe murdered her husband. We have Medea, who killed her kids, among other people. Do we meet any women who are just sort of hanging out, living their lives? No drama? We really don't. Because women were, I was going to say seen and not heard. They weren't even seen. They stayed at home. So it's kind of notable when we have a woman portrayed so, in this very large tombstone. And so if it's a man's tombstone, they want to show him doing something awesome, like fighting in battle, or he's standing there like he's giving a speech in the assembly or something. What do women do? They're at their home. So this is just this very homey scene. Her servant has brought her jewelry box to her, and she's choosing jewelry to wear that day out of her jewelry box. However, it also reminds us of something. Everything we're reading, all of these things are going on really because of slave labor. What do I want to say? Without sounding like it's fine to have slaves. It's not like our image of American slavery, though. It's more like hiring household help. Most slaves. You're the maid or the butler or the cook, or you're the guy who carries the kids, books to school for him and waits while he's at school and then walks him home and that sort of thing. Um, Nonetheless, they had people who went out to the market for them and did everything so that they can sit around and pick jewelry out of the jewelry box. However, if you were a woman, managing a home is not easy. And I'm sure Mrs. Kreiner would agree, managing everything that goes on in a household is not easy. And if you had to manage people as well, I mean, we do have to manage people if we have children, but managing the tasks. Anyway, I just thought this was interesting. A, because it comes from roughly the time of Socrates' death. B, because we just don't see a lot of women in our Greek year. All right, I will take your papers. I have already read some really interesting comparison questions. I have papers for you. Here's the deal. So Elliot, oh no, I have your paper right here.
I emailed it to you.
Oh, you emailed. How do I have your paper? Excellent. I have laboriously edited these papers on the Peloponnesian War being the biggest war. The closer you came to exactly what I was looking for, the fewer edits you have. But everybody has edits. Do not feel bad. I'm going to give this paper back to you. Like, oh, well, shoot. She wants me to do this and that. I screwed up. No, you didn't. Some people had to work. Not looking at anybody, and it might not be even here. I had to work sometimes to find something that you could do to make it better. I want you to fix them and bring them back to me. That is your entire assignment for writing this week. All right? So you don't have to come up with information. So, for example, you might have said something, made some sort of statement, and I might feel like you didn't really prove it. And I might say, could you give me your source? How do we know this? And guys, it's nothing you're going to have to go to the library and check out. But it's going to be very obvious what I'm wanting. All right? It's going to be in a book we've read. It's probably going to be in Herodotus or Thucydides. If you can't find it, email me and I'll direct you to the right book and chapter. No worries. Or you might have, and Alec, can I just, yours had a small problem. And so you might have to do a little more work. The Persian War did not last 50 years. The Persian War was way shorter than the Peloponnesian War. And that was one of your main arguments.
Okay.
That it was 10 years.
I looked it up and that's what was said, because I couldn't remember how.
Yeah, it was basically they attacked in 490, they attacked in 480, they went home.
Okay.
Now, the Persians were fighting other people, but so this is, I'm glad you said that. So A, we cannot always trust the internet. Did I tell you the story of when the AI summary at the top told me something that was just flat out a lie? Did I mention that to you? Just this is a cautionary tale, and this is why I say don't. I mean, I'm not saying if you can't look up how far away is the moon or whatever, but you just might want to double check, because at this point, everything on the internet is suspect. For a while, I feel like we could trust it a little bit, but now you can't. You see a picture of something, it might not be real. Anybody can make a website and tell you, and you just can't trust it. So anyway, somebody, a famous celebrity was murdered in December with his wife. And there was somebody else connected with them that I was wondering if, what they had to say, because it was a really old man and he knew them, and I thought, oh man, that'd be terrible if this just killed him. And the little AI summary came up and said, yeah, there's nothing about that because that didn't happen. That's a rumor. They didn't die. It was all over. Of course, yes, they did. And if I had just read that, I'd go, oh. Now, this wasn't important. I don't know these celebrities, and so my life doesn't really dramatically change because they're no longer, I'm sorry for them, but I don't know them. But if it was something really important and I just trusted that, it would tell me it was completely not true or tell me a flat out lie. So we will blame Google on Elliot's woes. But this means you're going to have to come up with another argument, right? If so, nobody's going to freak out if you see red writing on your paper, right? Because there's red writing on everybody's papers. I will. Oh, and Elliot, I have your other. I have two other things. That one's the only one you have to correct. Okay, that's the one, and I will hang on to Liam's. If I ask you to explain something, or I make a comment and you don't understand my comment, please ask me. Either ask me today now, email me and say, you said this on my paper. I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what you want me to do. But this is just to remind us, and I think I'm going to do this with every single paper next year. Miriam's like, great. I know my mom's going to say it. No, but it also means that sometimes your assignment is going to be just to work on a paper, right? Not a new paper. Because I feel like at this point I've given lots of feedback and we need to put it in action. It's not your fault if you don't remember, if you don't put it in action. I can't remember anything if I don't put it in action. All right? Does everybody understand? Okay? This is important. I want that paper I just gave back to you attached to the new version that you're going to bring me next week. I need to see it because I don't know what I told you to do. And I want to make sure that because maybe I was vague, I don't want to keep writing on papers endlessly. Well, I still don't like it. I still don't like this. I want to see what I said. So please bring them both. And on Tuesday, I threatened I will not receive your paper if you don't have them both. Because you're all old enough to be told something and follow directions. All right? That's it. That's writing for this week. Do a revision of your paper. All right. If you would just give me a moment as I looked at my... Well, actually, never mind. I don't need a moment. Let us take a look at the beginning of the Republic. There. All right. I would like to read for you a little bit of the way the Republic starts. Socrates, he's talking. He says, I went down to the Piraeus yesterday with Glaucon. Remember, the Piraeus is the port that they connected with the long walls to Athens. I went down to the Piraeus yesterday with Glaucon, son of Ariston, to pray to the goddess. And at the time I wanted to observe how they would put on the festival, since they were now holding it for the first time. Now, in my opinion, the procession of the native inhabitants was fine, but the one the Thracians conducted was no less fitting a show. After we had prayed and looked on, we went off toward town. Catching sight of us from afar as we were pressing homewards, Polemarchus, the son of Cephalus, ordered his slave boy to run after us and order us to wait for him. The boy took hold of my cloak from behind and said, Polemarchus orders you to wait. And I turned around and asked him where his master was. He's coming up behind, he said. Just wait. Of course we'll wait, said Glaucon. A moment later, Polemarchus came along with Adeimantus, Glaucon's brother, Niceratus, son of Nicias, and some others, apparently from the procession. Polemarchus said, Socrates, I guess you two are hurrying to get away to town. It's not a bad guess, I said. Well, he said, do you see how many of us there are? Of course. Well, then, he said, either prove stronger than these men or stay here. Isn't there still one other possibility, I said? Our persuading you that you must let us go? Could you really persuade, he said, if we don't listen? There's no way, said Glaucon. Well then, think it over, bearing in mind we won't listen. Then Adeimantus said, "Is it possible you don't know that at sunset there will be a torch race on horseback for the goddess?" "On horseback," I said. "That's novel. Will they hold torches and pass them to one another while racing horses, or what do you mean?" "That's it," said Polemarchus. "And besides, they'll put on an all-night festival that will be worth seeing. We'll get up after dinner and go to see it. There we'll be together with many of the young men and we'll talk. So stay and do as I tell you." And Glaucon said, "It seems we must stay." "Well, if it is so resolved," I said, "that's how we must act." All right. That is the beginning scene. And then, not too many pages in, you might remember that they get to talking about justice. And one of them, Thrasymachus, has a meltdown and starts yelling at them and arguing with them. And he says to Socrates, "You know, this is what you always do, Socrates. You always ask people questions, but you never say what you think. You need to say what you think." Thrasymachus says, "I want to know what you think justice is. And I don't want you to say things like the good or the beautiful or true or whatever else." Socrates says, "Okay. So it's like if you ask me, what is 12? But don't say 3 times 4 or 2 times 6. "Well, is that what you're going to do?" he said. "Are you going to give as an answer one of those I forbid?" "I shouldn't be surprised," I said, "if that were my opinion upon consideration." "What if I could show you another answer about justice besides all these and better than they are? What punishment do you think you would deserve to suffer?" he said. "What else than the one it is fitting for a man who does not know to suffer," I said. "And surely it is fitting for him to learn from the man who knows. So this is what I think I deserve to suffer." "That's because you're an agreeable chap," he said. "But in addition to learning, pay a fine in money too." "When I get some," I said. "He has some," said Glaucon. "Now, for money's sake, speak, Thrasymachus. We shall all contribute for Socrates." Does all of this remind you of anything you already read about Socrates? And considering you only read 2 things, I'm not asking you to search your memories horribly. I'm going to say it in other words, okay? While I wander off and warm up my tea, because I can. Except I have to take my microphone off. I am going to, they grab him. We're going to grab you. We're going to force you to go with us. We're going to grill you.
Oh, we got taken to court.
When you got taken to court? And do you remember that when he was in court, they said, "What punishment do you think you deserve to suffer?" And he said, "Well, I should be fed for free in the public cafeteria for life because I'm so helpful." And what does he? Does he propose a bad punishment here? No. He says, "Well, I deserve to learn." That's what somebody who's ignorant deserves. They deserve to learn. But he says, "Oh, well, pay a fine too." And his friends say, "Oh, yeah, we'll put up money for him." Exactly the way they did in trial. Now, we might ask, does Plato just have a very poor memory? Has he forgotten that he wrote basically this same thing in the Apology? I don't think so. I think he's purposely saying, in the Republic, Socrates is on trial again. He's on trial to find out what is just. Now, is there anything about justice that Plato might feel is related to Socrates' trial?
It was unjust.
It was unjust. They killed the just man. Athens doesn't know what justice is. They don't know. And Socrates is Exhibit A. If he's annoying, if he's embarrassing you, you get rid of him. If they mess with your plans, if they don't do exactly what you want, they get rid of you. This is really alarming because Athens, this was under a democracy. And today we think, yay, rah, democracy. It's peachy. We want everyone, and despite the fact that we're a republic, we don't vote for everything, right? But we vote for our rulers, and they make rules. And a lot of things we do vote about locally. And we tend to think everything is just hunky-dory if everyone gets a say. And these people lived it where everybody legitimately voted on everything. And they killed Socrates. All right, enough of that. Let's take a look at how this topic of justice comes up in the first place. How they light on that's what we're going to talk about. They go home with Polemarchus, and his elderly father, Cephalus, is there. And they start chatting about what's it like to be old? Do you find it difficult? What are the main difficulties of old age? And Cephalus answers this. What I say wouldn't persuade many, perhaps. For know well, Socrates, he said, that when a man comes near to the realization that he will be making an end, fear and care enter him for things to which he gave no thought before. The tales told about what is in Hades, that the one who has done unjust deeds here must pay the penalty there, at which he laughed up to then, now make his soul twist and turn because he fears they might be true. Whether it is due to the debility of old age, or whether he discerns something more of the things in that place because he is already nearer to them, as it were, he is at any rate full of suspicion and terror, and he reckons up his accounts and considers whether he has done anything unjust to anyone. So Cephalus himself brings up justice. Socrates, you want to know what it's like to be old? I'll tell you. You start really taking the afterlife seriously because it seems so much closer. Now, the first question I asked you is his response to Socrates saying, well, in general, you seem to be having a pleasant old age. Do you think that's because you're rich? Because you can easily provide for everything you need. You're not going to go hungry. What does Cephalus say that wealth is helpful for primarily?
It keeps them from cheating or deceiving other people.
Yeah. In other words, makes him just, right? He says the possession of money contributes a great deal to not cheating or lying to any man against one's will, and not departing for that other place frightened because one owes some sacrifices to a god or money to a human being. If you are in need, what might you be tempted to do? Steal it. Cheat people. Lie. He said, I don't have to do that. I'm looking back over the past and seeing how I've lived my life. That's on my mind. But I'm not worried about doing it now because I've got everything I need. So, what you say is very fine indeed, Cephalus, I said. But is to this very thing justice? Shall we simply assert that it is the truth and giving back what a man has taken from another? Or is to do these very things sometimes just and sometimes unjust? So the first definition that has popped up, what is justice? What do we mean? Giving back to people what you owe them, that's justice. And what problem problem is there with this definition? You give someone something, or someone gives you something. Keep this for me. And then they come, give it back. It is justice to give it back. That is what is owed to them.
Well, like if they give you something that they stole before.
Okay, so it has
Actually stolen it, so and you know it's stolen.
that.
You want to give it back to the person you stole it from.
This is true. This is true. But in that case, Elliot, wouldn't you still be giving back what is owed to the person to whom it is owed? Because the original owner would be owed that.
Well, what if that person is not the original owner? Like, what if they stole it too?
Well, we could go back. We could do an endless regression back to the original owner, which might take some time. But it still wouldn't. It still wouldn't make our definition wrong. Giving back what is owed. Do you remember, Miriam? He came up with an example.
Basically, like, the person you're giving something back to might harm them. Like, whatever you're giving to them. You know, you could be giving a crazy person a weapon or something.
Mm-hmm. They give you a sword for safekeeping, and then they go crazy. And, hey, give me back my sword. And you know they're going to go kill people with it or kill themselves. Or you say, no, buddy, I'm not giving you the sword. And then would you be doing a good thing or a bad thing by keeping the sword? That's an actual question. Well, yeah, kind of both, if that's the definition of justice. And that's our problem, right? Is justice giving back what is owed? Well, I owe this guy the sword. It's his. But I know really, really bad things are going to happen if I give it back. And causing someone to have bad things happen to them doesn't seem just to me. So if you have a definition and you can think of counter examples, it's not a very good definition, right? Say, my definition of dog is four-legged mammal. Great. And you say, what about
A cat.
a cat? Well, shoot, that's not a very good definition, is it? Yes, you can come up with lots of counterexamples. Therefore, my definition is bad. It's true, but it's not good enough. So we have this case where what if harm? You know for sure that harm will happen if you return that thing. In modern parlance, I mean, because we don't have a lot of people entrusting swords to us and going out and whacking people with them. You know, maybe you know someone, probably not in real life, or it's hypothetical, is a drug addict, right? And they have given some money to you to keep, and they've fallen off the wagon and they're back on drugs. Like, buddy, give me my money, and you know for sure they're going to go buy drugs with it. No, I'm not giving you the money. You're going to hurt yourself with the money. I would use the money and pay for rehab or something, but I will not give you the money. So that would be a more modern equivalent. All right, so this is the problem. Now, they're not going to give it up, though. His fellow conversation partners say, well, why don't we change it? We give to everyone what is fitting. Justice is to give back what is fitting. Justice gives good things to your friends and bad things to your enemies. Okay, now that counterexample, we're good, right? Because I'm doing a good thing for my friend by not giving him the sword. Because I'm keeping him from harm. But have you noticed that Socrates is not very quick to accept a definition? So let's see. I do good things to friends and bad things to enemies. And he says, as far as sickness and health goes, who is the person who's most able to make someone well, but also most able to make someone sick if they want to. A doctor. They take a vow not to make people sick, but they'd be really good at it if they wanted to. Who's best able to sail a ship where you want to go, or make sure it sinks? A ship driver, a pilot, a ship pilot. Who's best able to grow food out of the ground or completely ruin fields so they'll never grow food again? Farmers, all right. So who's best able to keep money and goods safe? A just man. What's he also going to be really, really good at?
Being unjust.
What?
Being unjust.
Yeah, cheating people. So Socrates says, okay, so are you saying that just people are also the most thoroughly potentially unjust? I'm like, no, Socrates, that's not what we're saying at all. He says, well, what are just people good for? Are they good when you need to get well, you're sick? Do you call a doctor or a just man? A doctor. When you want to build a house, do you call a contractor or the just man? Look, I call a contractor. So when are just people useful? Well, when you want to keep something, when you want something guarded. He's like, so just people are only useful when you don't want to use something. They're only useful when you have something to guard. And justice isn't any other use. If you want to do anything, you want an expert in that. But if you just want to guard something and keep it from getting stolen, you call the just man. I'm like, no, Socrates, no. He's okay. Well, all right. So let's go back to the whole helping friends and harming enemies. Let's revisit that. So, do you ever sometimes think somebody is your friend and it turns out they're not really your friend? They do something nasty. I'm pleased this has not happened. It sometimes does happen. I hate to tell you this. I hope it never happens to you. But it could happen that you think someone is your friend and then they turn on you and you're like, they weren't my friend at all. Also, sometimes you think someone is your enemy, but they're really doing good to you. So if it's just to help your friends and harm your enemies, then it's just to help your enemies who are acting like friends, but they're really your enemies. And it's just to harm your enemies who are actually, they seem to be enemies, but they're actually friends. So it's just and unjust to help and harm your friends and your enemies. And someone says, well, let's say this. Let's change our definition again. People who seem to be your friends and really are. We should help them. And people who seem to be your enemies and really are your enemies, we should help them. All right. This is the point at which Thrasymachus, who hasn't been speaking but has been listening this whole time, has a fit. And he gives his definition of justice. This is the next thing I asked you. What is Thrasymachus' definition of justice?
Taking advantage, or the advantage of the ruling party or the stronger.
The advantage of the stronger. And Socrates says, Thrasymachus. Well, do you mean like a boxer or a wrestler? It's his advantage? And Thrasymachus is just disgusted. He's like, you always do this, Socrates. You know very well that's not what I mean. I mean the person with power, not physical strength. The person in power. Now, can one of you explain to me how he arrives at this? What it is that we call just that's to the advantage of whoever's in charge? I didn't ask you this, but why would someone say that?
Because it helps them.
Helps who out?
Whoever's in charge.
Ah,
Whoever has power.
how does it help them out, Henley? What does the person in charge do?
Whatever they want.
Okay, and what do they tell other people to do?
Whatever they want.
Whatever they want them to do. And how, if you don't want to be constantly just telling people every day, you got to get up and say, hey, everybody, do this. The next day, hey, everybody, do this. What do you do? What do you do so you don't have to do that over and over?
You get somebody else to do it for you.
Well, yes, but how will your people know what they're supposed to do?
By doing it enough.
See, you're giving me very good answers, which means my questions aren't good enough. No Socrates. How do they know at the very beginning what you want them to do?
You show them
Okay. How do you show them?
by doing it yourself.
Oh, yeah. But you don't want to. You're the king. You don't want to.
You
This-
show the first person, then the first person shows the next person.
Okay. So you have 100,000 people that you're ruling over. How long is it going to take for everybody to show everybody else?
A long time.
A little while. Is there another way we could tell everybody at the same time?
Yeah, you get a megaphone. And you
You're so good, Emily.
you record yourself doing it and have everybody watch the video.
Oh, yeah. But there's no videos in this world, and there's no TV, and there's no phones, and there's no radio, and there's no internet.
They just have them all like gather in a big place, and then you show them all at the same time.
Okay. But maybe you're busy that day. What could you put in that place that they could all see, and you don't have to go?
Instructions.
And what do we call the instructions for a society of people?
Rules.
Yeah.
Laws.
Laws. We got there together, Henley. Although all of your answers were really, really good. I have no problem with any of your answers. It just sounds like a lot of trouble. You know what? I am a lazy ruler. I can't be bothered with talking in megaphones, Henley. I'm just going to say, hey, here's a list of rules. Print it and pass it out. Post it in the town square. Do it. And you said earlier, who are those rules good for? Who likes those rules?
Whoever's in charge.
Whoever's in charge. But we tell people, if you want to be a just person, you have to follow the law. Following the law is just. But you know what that law is? Just what I want.
It just benefits the person.
It just benefits me. This is Thrasymachus' point. Anybody who gets in charge, it doesn't matter whether it's a tyranny or a democracy or whatever. Whoever's in charge makes a bunch of rules, and they convince everyone they're in charge of that following those rules is good. It's just, you want to be a just person. It's important to be just. And he says, they scare them with these stories like Cephalus was talking about. When you die and go to Hades, you will be punished if you're unjust. So you have to follow my rules. But all those rules are really just for me. That is Thrasymachus' definition. Has nothing to do with whether a person is good or bad or anything. It's just a bunch of people, or maybe one person, sitting down and saying, what's good for me? Everybody do that. And I will brainwash you into thinking that's justice. What do you think?
Smart, because then it can rule out like if you don't want to have to deal with these things, you say that now you don't have to deal with those things, but you have to deal with something else.
Well, this is true. Which is maybe why societies tend to heap laws on laws and laws and laws and laws. You know, like law codes just get bigger and bigger and bigger, usually. All right, well, this is what Thrasymachus has to say about justice. It is the advantage of the stronger. So Socrates is not just going to take this sitting down. He says his first poking. Here, I'll see if I can poke you, and if you can remember what he said or come up with it. Maybe we can come up with it on our own. Are rulers infallible? Do they ever make mistakes? They do make mistakes. Is it possible that a ruler might make a mistake and he might think something is good for him when it's really not? But he puts it down in a law because he thinks it's good for him, but it's really not. So the people he rules over do that thing because it's the law. But it's really not to his advantage because he made a mistake. This is very much like the do good to your friends, but what if the person seems to be your friend, but they're really not? Thrasymachus just doesn't respond very well to Socrates poking at him. Here's what he says, as a matter of fact. When we came to this point in the argument, and it was evident to everyone that the argument about the just had turned around in the opposite direction, Thrasymachus, instead of answering, said, "Tell me, Socrates, do you have a wet nurse?" "Why this?" I said. "Shouldn't you answer instead of asking such things?" "Because," he said, "you know she neglects your sniveling nose and doesn't give it the wiping you need." That's really rude. You're acting like a naughty, spoiled brat, Socrates. You know what I mean. You're just poking holes in it because you want to. Question. Why was Socrates taken to court in the Apology? People didn't like him. What's the reason that people didn't like him?
Because he said things they didn't like.
He said things they didn't like. And why didn't they like it?
Because it didn't benefit them, or it
Made them look bad. Made them look foolish. Sometimes very publicly. Made them look ignorant. It made them look foolish. And now we have Exhibit A, Thrasymachus. Thrasymachus is angry because he's being made to look bad. He earlier, before he says it's the advantage of the stronger, let me see what it says here. Thrasymachus evidently desired to speak so that he could win a good reputation, since he believed he had a very fine answer. I'm clever, Thrasymachus says. I'm so smart. I know what's going on here. Rulers just set up laws and say that's justice, but it's all for them. Justice. You are now all rulers. Congratulations. Elliot, you set up your laws. Henley sets up his. Miriam sets up hers. And they're all different. But according to Thrasymachus, for your people to follow your laws, that's justice. For your people to follow your laws, that's justice. Same with you. But your laws are different from each other. So what is justice? Yeah, but you can't follow all of them. Maybe Eliot's law is you must eat ice cream every Friday. That's his, and a fine law it would be too, Elliot. Miriam has a law that you have to eat ice cream every day except Friday. And Elliot, you can only eat it on Friday. You see, you can't, now I can't, they're contradictory. So what's justice then?
While you're in her country, you only eat whatever, or you follow her laws. While you're in this country, you follow this law.
As that when in Rome, do as the Romans do. That's how we describe that. Yes, but I'm poor. Henley, I can barely afford the ice cream. I don't have money to travel. You see, what is just in Eliot's country isn't just in Miriam's country, according to Thrasymachus. Because justice is, and I don't know, we're not going to try to explore why this is to your advantage. Maybe you have a dairy farm and you have enemies who are dairy farmers. So you want to, keep people from eating the ice cream. I don't know. But remember Euthyphro. And he says, Euthyphro, what does it mean to be holy? What is piety? And Euthyphro says, well, what I'm doing right now, I'm suing my dad in court for murder. And Socrates, what problem did he have with that definition?
He didn't kill him. He died off of secondary.
This is true. But saying, again, I mentioned this last week, if you ask me, what is the definition of dog? And I say, Beagle and St. Bernard.
That's an example.
They're examples. And Socrates said, no, I don't really want an example. I want to know what it is that makes all pious things the same. This is what he wants here. What is justice? And it's always the same. We can't have a justice of Eliot and a justice of Miriam. Then I would never know what is just. And then I'm going to go face the gods after I die, and they're going to say, did you live just? I don't know. Was I living in Eliot's country or Miriam's country? Or maybe Hindley's country where, I don't know, you have to eat frozen yogurt. I'm sorry, Hindley, to put you in the frozen yogurt country. It's just sad. It's your punishment for today. Do you see what I mean? He wants something that's always the same, but if justice is just whatever Eliot decides it is or Miriam decides it is, it's never going to be the same everywhere. I can't give a definition of justice. Justice translates to whatever a certain person wants it to be. And I mean, eating ice cream and frozen yogurt is silly, but, murder or theft, or we could put much more serious things in there. And if there's no standard, remember they ran into that problem with Euthyphro. Do the gods love it because it's holy, or is it holy because the gods love it? Is there something outside saying this is justice? And Thrasymachus isn't giving Socrates that. Not to mention it's rather disconcerting to think that justice just changes depending on where I live. All right. All right, let's see. Thrasymachus pivots just a little bit. And he says, here's the thing, Socrates. Something you don't seem to know. This is why you need a nurse to wipe your nose. People always do what's best for them. Everybody in charge of anything does what's best for them. For example, why do you think shepherds give food to the sheep, says Thrasymachus. Why do you think shepherds give? What do shepherds want out of the sheep? Their wool, and maybe their meat. So in other words, I do this for me. I take care of you, sheep, because I can get something from you. Thrasymachus says it works that way all the time. So Socrates, after making a distinction between a shepherd caring for the sheep and a shepherd making money, which I'm not going to follow him in that argument, he says, look, Socrates, don't you see that in every case, unjust people come out on top? In the sense of what you're thinking of as justice, Socrates. For example, you have a just person and an unjust person, and they're both filing their taxes. Who's going to get more money back? Probably Someone who doesn't care if they break the law, they're unjust, or somebody who's just and they follow all the rules? The unjust person. They're gonna lie on their taxes. If you go through a cafeteria line and everybody gets 2 pieces of pizza, that's the rule. Who's going to eat more, the just man or the unjust man? He's going to take more. I'm not going to listen to your rules. Socrates, everywhere, injustice is stronger than justice. Everywhere. They always come out on top. And this is what we're examining at the very end. The last question I asked you for book 1 is, how does Socrates argue against that? Thrasymachus throws that out, and he says, it's obvious that injustice always comes out on top. What's Socrates got in response?
He basically says that nobody's ever fully unjust because they have to be just to the people that help them.
Yeah. So now we are a band of robbers. How far we have fallen. Just moments ago. It seems like only moments ago we were in charge of our own countries, and now we're living in the woods. And if each of us tries to cheat each of the others, how long are we going to stay a band of robbers together? Not long. All but one of us is going to end up dead. And maybe all of us. So who read the Chaucer storybook with me? You did. Do you remember the revelers who wanted to find death? They wanted to go out and kill death because everybody was dying, and they find treasure, and then they send one of them to town and say, oh, get us some food and drink, and while he's gone, the other 2 say, hey, we could split it 2 ways if we just bump him off when he gets back, instead of 3 ways. And in the meantime, the guy who's gone off to town buys rat poison and puts it in the drink so he can have it all. So they kill him, then they drink the drink to celebrate. And they all end up dead. It just doesn't last very long because they were perfectly unjust. So this is a pretty good argument. It seems to me a pretty good argument that any time people want to work together, even if you want to do something horrible, if someone rats you out, you're going to get caught. You all at least have to practice a certain level of justice to each other. Tell the truth, keep your word, or you're going to blow up the conspiracy. Does that make sense? So Socrates says something that we're actually going to meet him doing in book 2. Think about, that's a band of people. Think about one person. He said, if injustice makes people not able to work together and do what they want, what about injustice inside you? It makes you, all the parts of you, all the parts of soul that you have, not work together towards a common good. And it falls apart. You can't accomplish what you want to accomplish. That's what injustice does in your soul. Well, in book 2, Glaucon and the rest of them aren't convinced. They do believe justice is good. They don't agree with Thrasymachus. They don't think it's just a bunch of people strutting around saying, do it because I told you to. But they said, Socrates, at the beginning of book 2, they say, Socrates, do you want to seem to have persuaded us that it is in every way better to be just than unjust? Or do you want to really persuade us? And he says, I would choose to persuade you truly if it were up to me. So Glaucon and Adeimantus said, okay, let's compare the greatest justice and the greatest injustice and see what it is and which one is stronger. Actually, you tell me first. What is the story of the Ring of Gyges intended to illustrate? Why does this story come up? Do we remember the story? Do you need me to remind you, Henley? Would it help? Okay. So once upon a time, there's this guy. It's actually the Gyges, the Lydian, it's the Herodotus guy who hid behind the door and, and then killed the king. Okay. There's a storm and there's a sinkhole. Suddenly opens up and he falls down and he sees this big wooden horse with windows in it, and inside's a dead guy. It's a tomb. And he has a ring on his finger. And Gyges takes the ring off and he goes and he's a shepherd for the king. And he just is playing with it, and he realizes when he turns the stone in, he becomes invisible. And when he turns the stone back, he's visible again. And if you guys remember, what does Gyges decide to do? Have an affair with the queen, and with her help, bump off the king, become king, get rid of anybody who stands in his way of what he wants, and nobody knows it's him. Because he can just waltz around invisible and do whatever he wants. But everybody thinks he's a good guy. Because nobody knows it's him. What if you had a guy so perfectly unjust that the very injustice itself was hidden from everyone else? They can do anything they want, like Gyges. They'll never get punished. There'll never be any evidence. No witnesses. Let's take that guy. He's our unjust man. He's so unjust, and it's so perfect that he's curated his appearance to everyone else to be just. Now, to set against him, he's Exhibit A, the perfectly unjust man. Exhibit B is going to be the perfectly just man. Now, why might a person obey? We'll just take justice obeying rules, first of all. Why might a person obey rules?
Because that's what they're told to do.
Okay, because I'm just a very obedient sort of person. Why might I not speed? I don't want to pay a fine. Why might I not shoplift in stores? I don't want to go to jail. You see, my reason in those cases is not it's a wrong thing to do. It's because I get a reward for doing the right thing. Those are not going to jail and not paying a fine aren't exactly rewards. How about I give to charities and I publicly, I go and drop my money off at the time when the most people will be there to see me. Why might I be doing that?
Because then you get recognition.
Because that's what I really want. I just want everybody to say, oh, she's so good, she's so generous, she's so honest, she's so just. So Glaucon and Adeimantus say, here's what we have to do with our just man. We have the perfectly unjust man. He can make himself invisible. He's never, ever going to get punished. Everybody thinks he's great. The just man, he never does anything wrong. But he doesn't get any honor or recognition or any of the perks. He only does it because he's a just man. He says it like this. The extreme of injustice, that's the Gyges ring guy, is to seem to be just when one is not. All right? So the counterpart would be doing no injustice. Let him have the greatest reputation for injustice. Our just man, everybody thinks he's a rotter. He's not. He's got a really bad reputation. You've taken away all honor, all glory from him, so that his justice may be put to the test and see if it's softened by bad reputation and its consequences. Let him go unchanged till death. seeming throughout life to be unjust, although he is just, so that when each has come to the extreme, the one of justice, the other of injustice, they can be judged as to which of the two is happier. Glaucon says this is the only way we can judge them, because if we judge the just man, well, he's honored and revered. He says this is the reason people always give why it's good to be a just person. The gods will love you. People will love you. You will be trusted. You will be loved. You will be revered. You will be honored. We're going to take all that away. I just want to know what justice can do. Pure justice, not all the perks that come with it. He says, with two such men, it's no longer hard, I suppose, to complete the speech by a description of the kind of life that awaits each. It must be told then, and if it's somewhat rustically told, don't suppose that it is I who speak, Socrates, but rather those who praise injustice instead of justice. They'll say, the people who say, obviously injustice is better, they'll say that the just man who has such a disposition will be whipped, he'll be racked, he'll be bound, he'll have both his eyes burned out, and at the end, when he has undergone every sort of evil, he'll be crucified. And know that one shouldn't wish to be, but to seem to be just. What will they do to the perfectly just man? They will crucify him. This gives me goosebumps just a little bit. You know, written 350 some years, 350 to 400 years before Jesus. But if the perfectly just man, who had a reputation for injustice, oh, you know, he's a Sabbath breaker. He hangs out with the bad sort. He's the perfectly just man. They'll crucify him. Now, you just gave me a paper on comparing Socrates and Jesus. And obviously, I feel like this is a foreshadowing, maybe given the Greeks by God. I believe God gave them foreshadowings. He didn't give them revelation. He didn't give them the Bible, but he gave them understanding in their own way. And so here you have the perfectly just man. And he corrupts people. That's Socrates. You know, he's an atheist. He corrupts people. So I'm just trying to wake you guys up and say life is more than just making money and getting a good job. And you're going to kill me for it. So these are the two we're going to compare to find out if injustice is really better or stronger than justice, the way Thrasymachus says. Now, but they don't do it right away. They start making up a city. And this is the next question I asked you. Why do they begin to design an imaginary city? What's the point of this?
Trying to define justice.
We're going to try to find justice. Why not just look in a person's soul? Why not just look in people?
They're trying to find out a bigger scale.
Okay. He says, if someone had, for example, ordered men who don't see very sharply to read little letters from afar, and then someone had the thought that the same letters are somewhere else also, but bigger and in a bigger place, I suppose it would look like a godsend to be able to consider the little ones after having first read these first, if of course they do happen to be the same. It's always easy to see something bigger than something smaller, especially if you might have trouble seeing it. Do we all agree? Makes perfect sense. So he said, there's something called justice in a person's soul, but there's also something called justice in society, right? Something this is how justice operates in a city, in a society. He said, well, isn't a city bigger than a person? Yeah. Well, maybe we can make up a city. Maybe we can make up a city And then we can look for justice in the city. We can see where justice creeps in and injustice creeps in. We're going to build it from the ground up. So we can watch every little piece as we bring it in. And that's the plan. And they agree to this. So, how does a city start? How does a community start? Why does anybody decide to live around anybody else?
Because I like them.
Partly, maybe because they like him. Now, this is my mercenary nature showing. I might live with the people because I like them, but I might choose to live with a group of people for another reason.
Because you need them to survive. Because maybe you're not a farmer and you need.
They can do stuff I can't do. He says, a city, I believe, comes into being because each of us isn't self-sufficient but is in need of much. Do you believe there's any other beginning to the founding of a city? None at all, he said. So then when one man takes on another for one need and another for another need, and since many things are needed, many men gather in one settlement as partners and helpers. To this common settlement we give the name city, don't we? So he says, okay, well, what do we need? We need food. We need clothing. We need housing. So we need somebody who can grow food, produce food. Either grow it from the ground or, raise the animals that we're going to eat. What do we need if we want clothing? We need animals, but am I going to wear, do we just want to wear the skin, or do we want something fancier than that? What? Maybe. So I like Henley City. They're cool. They run around in animal skins. But if we don't want to kill the animal, because sheep don't do very well after you take their whole skin off.
You take the wool.
Take the wool, and then you just do you just glue blobs of wool to yourself?
Yep.
One of my daughters became enamored of Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute. And there's a character called Papageno. Anyway, he's covered in feathers. And she used to get Scotch tape and go outside and find feathers and tape feathers on, and then sing. I have photos. I have photo documentation of this. That's the mother of Chloe. What we have people that can make the wool into cloth, right? And people who know how to sew. People who can make shoes out of leather. People who know how to build a house, because I'm telling you, you do not want me to build your house. Now, that said, it sounds to me like we have two choices, and it sounds like we've already chosen one. Here are options. Henley is going to do all of that himself. He's going to spend a fifth of his day farming, a fifth of his day making clothes, and then what are the other 3/5? He's going to make shoes. He's going to take care of animals, and he's going to build houses. And he's going to spend, he has 10-hour days. Sorry, Henley. You spend 2 hours a day on each of those. Are you going to get a lot done on each of those each day? No. But what if one person spent all their time growing food, and another person spent all their time making clothes, and another person spent all their time building houses? Would they be pretty good at it? Would they get a lot done? And so Socrates says, which do you think we should choose? Which makes more sense? And they decide, hey, specialization. If these people came together in the first place because they needed each other, why would they do everything themselves? Why don't you take advantage of the fact that you're good at this and they're good at that, and you'll help each other? Okay, so this is how the city starts. And they set up this little city, and he says, oh, and they will prepare barley meal and wheat flour and bake the loaves and stretch out on rushes strewn with yew and myrtle and feast themselves, and they'll they don't need shoes in the summer because it's warm and great. Glaucon interrupted, saying, you seem to make these men have their feast without relishes, without any niceties. What you say is true, I said. I forgot they'll have relishes, too. It's plain they'll have salt, olives, cheese, and they'll boil onions and greens, and we'll set desserts before them. Figs, beans, and they'll roast acorns before the fire. And he said, if you were providing for a city of sows, Socrates, on what else would you fatten them than this? That's no good life. Well, how should it be, Glaucon? I said. As is conventional, he said. I suppose men who aren't going to be wretched recline on couches and eat from tables and have relishes and desserts, just like men do nowadays. All right, I said, I understand. We are, as it seems, considering not only how a city, but a luxurious city comes into being. He calls the former city the healthy city. The one where they don't have lots of desserts and fancy stuff and they don't get all soft and lazy. I see the healthy one isn't adequate anymore. So we need, pastry cooks and actors and dancers and musicians and all of this. And he says, oh, I know something else we're going to need now. Doctors. Because they're all going to be sick. I like this particularly because I feel like this is a description of modern society, We do everything we can to make ourselves sick, and then we go to the doctor. Then he said, and the land, of course, which was sufficient for feeding the men in the healthy city, the small one, now will not be sufficient. So we must cut off a piece of our neighbor's land if we are going to have sufficient pasture and tillage. And they, in turn, from ours, if they let themselves go to the unlimited acquisition of money. So we're going to be stealing land from our neighbors, and they're going to try to steal it from us. So what do we need if we're going to go out and steal other people's land? Soldiers. Now we need an army. And he said, oh, I think we just found the origin of war. So he calls these guys the guardians. They're the guardians. And of course, are they going to be full-time soldiers? Why?
Because they need to dedicate all their time to it.
Because we agreed that it works better if one person's a farmer and one person, is a house builder and one person is a soldier. If you specialize, things work better. All right. So he says, all right, let's talk about these guardians, these soldiers. What do they have to be like? What sort of people do you need to be soldiers? Okay. They need to be tough. They need to be strong. They need to be powerful. Should they run away in battle? No. They need to be brave, tough guys. But Henley, what if you don't have a war right now and the soldiers are just roaming around your city and they're just a bunch of tough guys who are brave and super strong, and what might happen? We can't have that. That's not good for our city at all. So who do they need to be fierce and brave towards?
Other people.
Mm-hmm. And how do they need to act towards their own people? Nice. This is very good. Well done. This is exactly what Socrates says. We need guardians who are going to be tough, strong, brave. And he uses an interesting term that I want to point out. He said, will any creature, horse, dog, any other animal, be willing to be courageous if it's not spirited? Haven't you noticed how irresistible and unbeatable spirit is, so that its presence makes every soul fearless and invincible in the face of everything? Spirited. What? That's his description. Its presence, being spirited, makes every soul fearless and invincible in the face of everything. What do you think he means by spirited? Okay, I like that. What would the spirited person who believes in his cause, and he's in a battle, right? But some of his fellow soldiers are wavering. What might he do?
Try to get them to be spirited.
Yeah. And how? What? Yeah, like you're the general. You've been promoted suddenly. Boy, your life is just, you're a ruler. You're a band of robbers. And your guys look like they're a little, before battle. What do?
Give them you like, what do they call it? An incentive.
Yeah. You might give them an incentive. I'm going to give, which would work. Or, you guys have an idea? What?
Give them a motivational speech.
You give them a motivational speech, like they always do in the movies. A day may come when the strength of men shall fail, but it is not this day. And you wave your sword around. We happy few, we band of brothers, okay? And you give them a motivational speech. And this is spirited. It is a spirited, and it puts spirit in them. Not spirit in the sense of they're dead if they don't have it, not breathing or, or relationship with God, but just and guys, we all know we're not soldiers. I'm assuming none of you has gone out into battle waving a sword. Probably not a sword. But if you've had to do something you didn't want to do, and I'm guessing at the age you're at some point in your life, you've had to do something you didn't want to do. And maybe it was kind of nasty or hard. And you sort of talk to yourself and work yourself. I can do this, right? You're trying to make yourself spirited. You're giving yourself the motivational speech, right? My son, who's in the military, introduced me to this song called Horse Soldier. Oh, if we're done, I should play Horse Soldier for you. It's awesome. And it's all about cavalry throughout the ages. Anyway, I listen to that song, it makes me want to go get a horse and just ride into battle. It's just, okay, it increases that spirit. So he said, we need these guys to be spirited. I'm making a big deal about this, by the way, because the idea of spirited is going to come back in the Republic. So I want us to understand what he means by spirited, that's a worked up to do it aspect. So we need soldiers who can be spirited and courageous, but nice to their own. And those seem contradictory. All fired up, but really gentle. And it's, well, where are we going to find that? And Socrates says, oh, well, we're being stupid. We just talked about it. Dogs. Not that dogs should be our soldiers, but that this exists in dogs. And then he says something very weird. He said, then does the man who will be a fit guardian need, in addition to spiritedness, able to be a philosopher in his nature? How's that, he said? I don't understand. This too you'll observe in dogs, he said. I said, dogs are philosophers too. He says, it's a thing in the beast worthy of our wonder. What? Dogs are philosophers? Why? Here it is. If a dog growls and barks at someone, probably who is that person for that dog? A stranger. And if a dog fawns all over you, who are you for that dog? Somebody it knows. Now, what if it's a really, really, really nice stranger? Will that change whether the dog barks or growls? Maybe it depends on the dog. Probably not, if you're a total stranger. What if you're someone known to him that yells at the dog and whacks him with newspapers on occasion? Is he still probably going to fawn all over you? Probably, because he knows you. So Socrates' point is, look, dogs base all of their behavior on knowledge. How they respond to a person is based on knowledge and understanding. Because knowledge and understanding are so important to dogs, they're philosophers. That's your takeaway for today. Who of you have dogs? All right. I want you to study your dog this week. I want you to bring back evidence of philosophy. If you get a picture of him wearing glasses and reading a book, you get bonus points. So he says we need these guardians to be philosophers too, because we want them to have understanding. We don't want them maybe to act from just instinct like dogs do, but they need to have understanding of when it's appropriate to be spirited, courageous, and fierce, and when it's appropriate not to. Okay. Now, we really need to make sure these guardians are raised well. We're going to start producing these guardians from the ground up, because what we teach them will make them what we need them to be. And he says, let's educate the men in speech. Let's make up a school now. What is the schooling going to look like? Great. What is the education? Isn't it difficult to find a better one than that discovered over a great expanse of time? It is, of course, gymnastic for bodies and music for soul. This is standard Greek education. Gymnastic obviously means working out your body. Music means everything the muses give us. So we would call it music, art, literature, poetry, all of that. This would be a music class, what we're doing here, because it's literature and philosophy and words. That's how we raise them. Okay, great. Gymnastic, we got. We know how to work out. Great, we have places for that. Let's talk about this music, poetry, literature, and everything. Should we just tell them every story? Or should we be careful about the stories we tell them? What?
We only tell them some.
What? And that's the last question. What should they hear and what should they not hear?
Being courageous is good. Being spirited is good. One of those, like how the Spartans did it, come back with your sword or with your shield or
Yes, yes.
make it so that being spirited and like a brave fighter is all they've ever known. Then they're going to be unstoppable.
And they're going to be unstoppable. Now, we also want them to be pious, perhaps, and care about the gods. So let's think about the Iliad. How do the gods behave in the Iliad?
Wait, no.
Like in general, how do they behave towards each other? They double cross each other and they fight with each other and like, well, it's okay, gods do it. Do we want the guardians to think that sort of thing's okay? No, we don't, because we want them to work as a unit. We don't want them fighting and double crossing each other. How about stories like how, Zeus took revenge on his father and didn't respect his father and threw him out of Olympus and stuff? Do we want them to hear stuff like that? No, we want them to be respectful. So Socrates says, so sorry, Homer, we love you. But I'm afraid we can't have all your stories in our city, because it will make them think that that sort of behavior is okay. It's not. I like what you said before, that we need stories that will rouse them and show them being courageous. We don't want to tell them stories about people running away frightened from battle, or stories designed just to scare them into doing the right thing. He said we don't want a bad representation of what gods and heroes are like. And then he gives a lot of examples of things. One of them is, so we can't say, 2 jars stand on Zeus's threshold, full of dooms, the one of good, the other of wretched. We can't have Zeus dishing out bad things. Gods are good. The gods are all good. They only give good things. So that's out. We're going to be very careful about their education. Is it easier to mold someone's character when you start when they're young or when you start when they're older? They're younger. What we're all exposed to when we're young is really important. Which is, all of you have had the benefit of parents who care about what you're exposed to. I not so much, right? And when you're young is the time to develop those habits. Socrates knows this. The Greeks knew this. This is not new. When's the best time to grab kids and corrupt them if you want to? When they're young. When they're young. This idea of early childhood education, whatever we want to call it. 2,500 years ago, they were discussing this issue. Isn't new. What is best for the young if we want them to be certain kinds of people? And first we have to decide what kind of people that is that we want them to be. So I guess that's another takeaway. I'm not going to fill in the blank. Maybe you can just mull over what education commonly is in our country. It isn't for you, but what it commonly is, and what the goal seems to be. That's all. Except for the fact that we are going to continue to ignore what I said in the reading guide. And we are only going to read books 3 and 4. So book 3, the questions are in this past week's, and book 4, they're in the next week. But please only read those 2 books. Because there's just so much in this book to talk about that I don't think we should rush ahead. All right. Revise your paper. Bring it back with the one that I edited so I can see the difference. And that is all. And I will see you next week.